Hey everybody, this is Ben from A Bit of BS. Wanted to show you guys the steps that I go through in between coats with Waterlox finish. It probably is fairly similar to other finishes, but I wanted to show you the steps that I use. I'm not going to say that they're the exact right thing to do, but it seems to work really well for me, and I end up with a really silky smooth finish on the piece when it's all said and done. And it'll help you guys that are new get a grasp on what's needed to be able to go from one stage of the finishing process to the next, and the possibly also the other things that you might need to purchase in order to get going on this. So let's check this out. So we've got an ash bowl here. The ash that I've been using here is a chunk of wood that came out of our yard. We had a huge ash tree that we had to take down because it was dying and dropping big limbs. I find ash really challenging to work with. At least the stuff we have here seems to be very abrasive. I don't know if it picked up some sand or what, but it's really hard to work with. This piece in particular has 2 coats on it already, and it's just about done. So I'm past the yucky parts, and we're ready to move on to getting this piece done. I use an open mesh sandpaper. It's really easy to work with. It has it's totally open, like you can see there. You can see right through it. You can also blast compressed air through it. You can get all of that sandpaper clogging dust out of the actual sandpaper, and it seems to work really well. I got a link to it in the description. I got 400 grit, 325 I believe, or 320 grit, and 600 grit, all linked in the description. Obviously the further you go in this process, the higher you go in your grit. It just works really well for finishing off the bowl. You can wet sand with it. You can do all sorts of different things with it. Doesn't build up as much heat. You can run the thing a little bit faster. Nice stuff. Really, really nice stuff to work with. Okay, let's talk about applying finishes. The first coat of finish that you're going to apply is basically going to follow the surface of the wood to a T. If there's a blemish that sticks up, it's going to follow that blemish and actually make it bigger. And if there's a blemish that sticks in, it's going to try to fill that, but it might not be able to completely fill it. It also might raise the grain in the wood. It might do a lot of different things. So now let's take a look at what happens if you do a crappy job of sanding in between coats, you dumb idiot. The second coat is going to basically just follow the blemishes on the piece again. If there's something sticking up in the first coat, it's going to flow right up over the top of the first coat, and you're going to end up making the defects even larger than they were before. So each time you apply a new coat of finish, you need to make sure that you take the time while you're prepping to get that piece as flat and smooth as you possibly can. The objective here is to be able to allow that finish to flow out over the surface and be perfectly smooth and flat. So this is the time you're going to feel the piece, make sure that you get rid of all of the defects that are sticking up and anything that's protruding down into the wood as well. You need to take care of that as well. You don't want to continue on any further if you've got anything there that you simply can't cover up with finish. This is why I use one of these here high-dollar sanding pads. This here is actually a piece of foam that I got from I don't even know, packaging material that I got in a box. Doesn't need to be anything special, just needs to be relatively flat, and you can wrap your sandpaper around that and get a nice smooth finish without having to spend a boatload of money. So let's take a look at our ash bowl here again. Let's get it chucked up onto the lathe, and we'll get to sanding here. I'm going to just edit out the part where I fumbled around with it like a complete and total moron. Chucking it into the chuck. Doing it again because I'm an idiot. And this material was obviously a little bit wetter than I was anticipating because it did move. You'll see that when it starts to spin up here a little bit. It doesn't run completely true. I chucked onto the same spots that I would initially grabbed onto it with this chuck. I'm spinning in reverse just because I want the dust to go up towards my dust collection, which is up above. And one of the other things that the open mesh sandpaper allows you to do is it allows you to run a little bit faster. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what speed you should be able to go at, but realistically, it is going to allow you to run a little higher RPM than you would be able to with a closed mesh where you're building up sandpaper and finish on the paper itself. So continuing on, you can see I'm moving my hand really fast. This is definitely sped up. If I could move my hand that fast, I'd never leave home. Anyway, you got to keep the sandpaper moving. This is the case for any sanding process. You don't really want to just sit anywhere and hold it down really hard. I'm using relatively light pressure here. I'm also clearing out the sandpaper with compressed air, which I keep right by the lathe right there. Allows me to blow off dust, and it also allows me to move some of my fart gas around the room a little bit too if I get overwhelmed. But you can see I do it multiple times, just moving the sandpaper around, trying to hit the spots that are difficult, and clearing out the sandpaper with the compressed air. So now we're going to check our progress here. You can see I'm using my fingers to feel the surface. I want to be able to feel if there's anything sticking out, any rough areas. I think in this case, the end grain underneath that little lip at the top of the bowl was showing a little bit of extra texture to it that I didn't want there. So you're using your eyes and your fingers to be able to tell whether or not you've gotten what you need to get. And then I came right back and focused on that area. And I'm not, like I said before, I'm not applying a lot of pressure here. I'm just trying to get that surface work back down to as flat as possible. Now, ash is a very open grain wood. I've done a number of different things to try to close up some of the grain, but a lot of times, like on a bowl like this one here, I'm going to go ahead and leave that open, and I'm just going to use the finish to seal up the holes and get that finished layer to build up and make it as smooth as I possibly can. I mean, ash that's one of its characteristics, is how open it is. And you're just going to kind of have that in the piece, and there's really not a ton you can do about it. So here, continuing to sand, just kind of working that same area again until I'm satisfied with how it is. I want to make sure that I blend that out. Now, if you held that sandpaper on there for too long, what ends up happening is the material that you're removing, which a lot of it is finish, is going to continue to rub on that surface. So if you don't clean the sandpaper out, or if you are running at too high a speed, or if you're just pushing too hard, you can end up with melted streaks of finish on the top surface, and you obviously don't want that either. So pay attention to it. You gotta use your eyes, you gotta use your fingers and feel those surfaces, and you gotta pay attention to what you're doing. So here comes my secret weapon, and this isn't mine. This is an idea I got from another wood turner. But basically, I'm using triple E compound on a Beal buffing pad, and then pretty much, and Beal's compound is similar to a lot of other compounds I've seen too, but the triple E compound, there's a lot of confusion about what the actual grit is of that, and I think it's somewhere around 1,000 grit. And see, I'm just applying it onto the buffing wheel, and with my drill, I'm just spinning it on there and polishing up that surface even more. Whereas, once again, just trying to get that as smooth as we possibly can. Trying to move that thing around, trying to keep it moving. We don't want to, have the thing held in one spot so that it digs in and melts the finish or does other bad things that we don't want it to be doing. So just working it back and forth here, using a fair amount of pressure here, not enough to crack the bowl or anything crazy like that. But we're just pushing a little bit here and getting a nice buff going here. So now we need to clean off all the grit from the buffing compound and any fingerprints or anything like that we have on the surface. I'm using denatured alcohol here. There's no trick to it. I'm just buying the stuff from local stores, trying to keep some of the money local here. The main objective here is to make sure that the surface is completely clear of anything that's going to keep the finish from adhering and also running across the surface and smoothing itself out. You see here, I'm just popping the thing open. I've actually since got a different delivery method for this, but this works just fine. It's just kind of a pain to open the thing up all the time with a screwdriver. Just putting a liberal amount on the cloth here. I want to wet that surface completely, and I want to make sure that there is absolutely nothing left on the surface here that's going to cause any issues with the finish. Just scrubbing every single last square inch of this thing, just making sure that there's nothing on it. I've actually since taken to blowing this surface off afterwards as well, just to remove any fuzzes or anything lint I get from a cloth or something like that. So here's the blow off process. There's no real trick to this. I forgot to film it, so I had to throw something else on here just to give you guys an example of how it works. Yeah, there's no real trick to it. You just get some compressed air on it, make sure the fuzzes and lints are all blown off. Just so everybody knows, no one was injured in this process. Well, mostly not injured. So here's the money shot. This is the stuff that really makes the bowls look amazing, other than obviously the sanding work and prep you did up to this point. But Waterlox original, and I'm using the high gloss formula. It's a tung oil based finish, and it's really amazing stuff. It's a little more expensive and it takes a little bit longer to apply, but I think it gives you a much better bowl when you're done. They sell directly from their store, Waterlox's store. They sell these lossless bags here. You basically get no atmospheric touch to the stored finish in the bag. So you pour out what you need, put the seal back on the top, and they're sealed in there. It keeps the stuff from curing prematurely. It just makes it a much nicer product to work with when it's all said and done as well. So I'm putting on the proctology gloves here. I use a little cup. I pour off what I'm going to need into this little cup here. It's got some magnets on the bottom. I can actually stick it right down to the bed of the lathe. Got some little rags here that I've cut out. Basically, it's an old sock. I spin the piece up very slowly. I'm trying to keep... it's just kind of a little magical combination for the bowl diameter to the speed that you're spinning it at. You're trying not to get it to be spinning too fast. And I just want to make a nice smooth application. I don't want to agitate the Waterlox. I just want to be able to put it on nice and smooth and uniform, very, very uniform, all the way across the entire surface here. I want it to be able to flow out and smooth out before it cures. It does start to tack up fairly quickly. I mean, it's not going to be drying on you or anything crazy like that. You do have to let it dry overnight. But I want it to be able to level off completely before it actually starts to dry. I'm just working inside and out here. I did find that the socks they're the best application method I've found so far. There's no paper towel that can compare. The shop towels, none of that stuff is anywhere near as good as a good old-fashioned sock or something along those lines. Look at that shine. So if you're concerned about the production lead who was potentially injured earlier in the video here, you'll notice we're going to go through a little quick fixer up for this guy. He is fine now, no need to worry, but basically what we're going to do here is we're going to apply a little bit of glue into his foot hole, and then we're going to jam his leg into his foot. Wiggle it around a little bit. This is Frank, by the way. Make sure they're level. His were not initially level, which is probably why they blew off in the first place. Grab a bacon Band-Aid, because everybody's got bacon Band-Aids in their shop. You should, if you don't. Put the bacon Band-Aid over the bottom of the foot and wrap it up onto the leg to make sure that bacon holds the foot into place where it should be. And there we go. Frank is right as rain now. Ready for another spin on the lathe. Maybe throw some ibuprofen at him. For the pain. So thanks for sticking with me up until this point. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and give me a share here. Help me grow the channel a little bit. You'll also notice that there's in the description there's a bunch of links to most of the products that I have here. Although I don't have the bacon Band-Aids on there, maybe I should be adding that in there as well. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.